Hello and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. I'm Conor. We got Gilberto Manzano here. Albert Breer is out. Probably celebrated that Ohio State win this weekend too hard. My guess is still hungover, but who knows? We're waiting for the medical report. We are going to go through all of Sunday's action, but first, Gilberto, we got a little bit of breaking news, which is always
Yeah.
fun. Dennis Allen has been fired as the head coach of the Saints, second in-season firing. Boy, if I had my bingo card, I would not have thought a couple weeks ago that Dennis Allen would be the second coach out, but lo and behold, here we are.
Yeah, I guess I'm not too surprised. Last year there was a lot of talks about Dennis Allen possibly being on the way out. They kept him on for another season. And Connor, as you know better than anybody else, when you say, you know what, let's do it one more time, let's try it out, it usually doesn't work out. And I don't know. I've been pretty annoyed with the Saints here, Connor. I've been I've been bashing them pretty often. And it's like since Drew Brees retired in 2020, we all know about the mess with Sean Payton. Like, doesn't this team feel like they needed a full reset and a full rebuild? But no, bring in Derek Carr. Keep re-signing Alvin Kamara. Keep re-signing Demario Davis. Okay, Tyrann Matthew, stay on. Marshall Lattimore, we won't trade you. This and that's a very veteran-filled roster here, and what do you really have to show for it? Four consecutive seasons without a playoff appearance there. So the one thing I found funny yesterday, Connor, was Cameron Jordan tweeting saying, "Man, we just lost to the Panthers." I'm like, you kind of are the Panthers. So what are you talking about? You're at the same level here. So it was rock bottom with a 7-game losing streak there, and then yeah, you feel for Dennis Allen, a very good defensive coach, but it wasn't working there.
So the Saints are a little bit less than $80 million over the salary cap for next year. So good luck to whoever takes that job. But I think you're right, Gilberto. It's less like one guy that needs to go, and I think this needs to be an entire organizational reset. Like Mickey Loomis has been the GM and name of this team for forever, as long as I can remember. And outside of the Drew Brees thing, I mean, you had a couple, Marcus Colston, and remember they had like a couple of good like personnel finds during the Sean Payton era. But after that, I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, this has been a team that's been barely hanging on. They've squandered a lot of youth, a lot of bad draft picks, and we're at the point now where, I mean, I don't know if you had to power rank the available jobs, even the jobs that you think are available, this has got to be pretty far down your list, no?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I mentioned, Connor, a lot of a lot of veteran players with no future here, and I really wonder what happens with Derek Carr. There was a connection there with Derek Carr and Dennis Allen from the Raider days, and he's a very good quarterback. It's just, he's not that young franchise quarterback that you want to hit your wagon to, like a Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud. But you know, Derek Carr is very interesting because he's a good quarterback, and maybe he finds somewhere else like a Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield to have that I guess second chance at a career. He already got that, I guess a third chance for Derek Carr. But yeah, you would think they'll probably move on from that. Like I mentioned, a lot of veterans that are older on the defensive side. You might trade those players. I really hope they trade all those players there. It'd be nice to see like a Cameron Jordan get a chance to win a Super Bowl ring. But offensively, you got Chris Olave, you got Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara. We'll see how much he has left offensively. But I really thought this rookie class was going to be better, Connor, with Fuaga, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Spencer Rattler didn't really show much as a quarterback. I know it was a tough situation, but yeah, it's not really a whole lot to like here for the New Orleans Saints.
I think you burn it all down, right? I think you got to burn it all down. But what was interesting to me is so Darren Rizzi is the special teams coordinator, is the interim. If you're Gail Benson, you're the Benson family. You had Clint Kubiak in there, who after 2 weeks, and just kind of taking a pulse of the head coaching industry, there were so many people who were blown away by Clint Kubiak after 2 weeks, and now they were massive victories over the Panthers and the Cowboys, which look a little less impressive in hindsight. But I'm curious why you wouldn't have made him the interim head coach. I mean, Clint's going to get a good job somewhere. He'll be an offensive coordinator in the NFL next year. Why would you go the typical route of going to the special teams coordinator? I understand the logistics of it all, right? And we saw it happen with the Jets, where if you take the interim head coach and he's a coordinator and you spread him too thin, how it impacts everything. But that said, if you have a good play caller, I feel like you put him in that spot and let him see if he can feel it out. Because what worst case scenario, you fall in love with him and you keep him for another couple of years. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. I guess is that maybe what you mentioned. It maybe it's a little too much to do there, call plays, and then also run the whole ship there. And he just got there too. It wasn't like Jeff Ulbrich, who's been there, I guess, a couple of years, or Robert Saleh. Like you mentioned, Clint Kubiak had those first 2 weeks there, and didn't have a quarterback, and had to, really do a lot there in a chaotic situation. So, I guess that makes sense from that standpoint. But then at that point, you're probably thinking like you want to compete for the number one pick. I know you can't say the T word in the NFL, so why have somebody competent running the ship there? But I don't know, and I know we're talking about the future here, but looking back, I thought I expected so much better from these Saints here. It was a very good 2-0 start. Clint Kubiak, like you mentioned, was a hot commodity, rising up the coaching rankings. But that Derek Carr injury did hurt them. But the one thing that kept coming away when Derek Carr was healthy, they just felt too much like the Miami Dolphins, were like bombs away to Olave and Raheem Shaheed. I'm like, okay, what else you got here? If the
Yeah.
bombs don't work there, and I get it, maybe that really came into my head in the Kansas City game on Monday Night Football. When you're playing the Chiefs, what else can you really do? But I want to see a little more diversity from the offense, and maybe we see that with less pressure for Kubiak down the stretch.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I there's only 32 of these jobs. Someone will take that job. I would say a person to watch for is Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn is defensive coordinator of the Lions. Aaron Glenn has been in New Orleans. If they stick to this, like we are a small family business, mom and pop thing, there's some familiarity there. And maybe Glenn has the energy, he has the gravitas to help dig them out of this hole, which is just, again, it's astronomical. You're going to have to go through so much cap pain in order to get out of the other side of this. I mean, this roster, it's not going to be a normal roster, NFL roster until 2027, 2028. And I really don't know what other option. I mean, and it's funny. I mean, Sean Payton must be laughing on his way to the bank right now because he's partially responsible for this. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's mortgage it. Let's win now. Let's win now. Let's win now. And then he's like, nah, I'm going to go coach the Dolphins with Tom Brady. And then actually, I'm going to go coach the Broncos with Russell Wilson. And so he hightailed it out of there. He saw the writing on the wall. And Alan, I do think, and I'm curious your take on this, I see a good I see good golden years for Dennis Allen. I see a Steve Spagnuolo
Hmm.
like golden years for Dennis Allen because if you watch the Saints on tape, even in their kind of darkest moments this year, and there were plenty, right? I thought that defense was interesting. Like it looked good and they did smart things. But again, I mean, this is an old roster. It's full of veterans. It's past its prime. It's aged out, whatever you want to call it. But I still think he's good. And I think in the end, like, I don't know. I know everyone wants to be a head coach, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to be like a defensive coordinator on like, I don't know, like a top five team for the rest of your career. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, why not? That's a good comparison with Spagnolio there to, win a couple of Super Bowls with somebody else as a DC. And, it sucks that he's becoming the scapegoat because it should be maybe more on the front office, the ownership. They don't really have a future. They haven't had a long-term vision since, like you mentioned, Sean Payton left and was flirting with Miami, then going to the TV booth and then going to Denver. So, but he's been gone for 2.5 years. So that pointing to Sean Payne as a blame looks like an excuse there. But Dennis Allen, the one thing that I can't get over was that Tampa Bay game where they allowed 600 yards total and
Yeah.
51 points there. So I
Yeah.
think you knew the wheels were falling off at that point. Like I mentioned earlier, when you try to give it another chance there with the coach, it just usually doesn't work out. But it's not his fault that he signed all these old players and the GM is not hitting on draft picks. Like again, I expect more from this draft class here. It just hasn't worked out there. And it's not just Derek Carr being hurt. This team had a lot of problems overall. But yeah, when you're giving up 600 yards to the NFC South rival there, your days are numbered.
All right, let's play a quick game before we get into it. I'm going to tell you what jobs are probably going to be open, and
Okay.
you're going to tell me if you would rather take that job or the Saints job. Okay.
Okay.
Dallas Cowboys or the Saints job.
Yeah, the Cowboys in a heartbeat. I know there's a lot of pressure and drama, but at least you
You'd
got Dak
rather work
Prescott.
for Jerry
Yeah.
Jones?
You get to have the nice facility with the tour and the fans watching you work all day. How about that? That's okay, right? You be in the spotlight all day. I'm okay. I'm a coach.
All right, all right. Let's see. Going down the list. I mean, I'm not saying this job is going to be open, but New York Giants or I think they'll hang on to Brian Dable, but Giants or let's play the game anyway. Giants or Saints.
You know what? I will take the Saints here.
Wow.
I like Malik Neighbors. You know, you don't have really an answer at quarterback with Daniel Jones. There's some good pieces defensively, but I can't get over the whole MetLife Stadium thing. Like, the field. Like, what if my players get hurt and then I'm screwed for a year? You know, I don't want a
Yep.
bunch of torn ACLs for my star players here. So that spooks me there too much. I won't do it. I get it, Connor. There's only 32 jobs here. I can't be selective, but I'm gonna be picky about the field here for this one.
Jacksonville Jaguars or Saints?
uh, Yeah, give me the Saints here. I've been to London one time.
What?
Yeah,
You would rather
I
the Saints job than to coach Trevor Lawrence?
don't. There's just something about also. I want to be somewhere where I know I feel like I could win. If you go into Jacksonville, it feels like a letdown. It's like, really, we're going to do something here, Shad Khan. I like Tony Khan. I'm a pro wrestling guy. He has AEW there, but that'd be cool. I get free tickets to AEW, but it's not WWE. Sorry about that, Tony Khan. Uh, but you do have Trevor Lawrence, and honestly, Connor, I'm the fool that picked the Jaguars last week for our pick'em challenge because I just said F it, why not? And I know you appreciate that. You do a lot of F it picks here
Hell yeah.
for SI, and they almost had it. And then Trevor Lawrence threw that pick there in the end zone. But I like him. It's just he has been too up and down for me to really go all in. Like, why can't you do what Jaden Daniels has been doing? I know that's a high bar there, but he's a rookie. Come on, Trevor Lawrence, do that. So it's just, I think to me, it's more like it's the Jaguars. You know how Cameron Jordan said, we just lost to the Panthers. It's like, I don't want to coach for the Jaguars. I know I'm being a little harsh here, but I'll go with the Saints.
Saints or Eagles?
Definitely the Eagles.
I think so.
Obviously, they win a lot. You got Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and yeah, sometimes I want to support Nick Sirianni for being like a pro wrestling character, and then other times it's like, what are you doing, man, out there? You almost lost to the Jaguars. So, but I'll still take the Eagles here.
Uh, Saints or Bears?
Yeah, Bears also. You got Caleb Williams.
That's a
Good
good
deep.
job. I think
Yeah,
a lot
good.
of people would want that job.
Yeah, good skill position players, good defense. You got Montez Sweat locked up. Offensive line is terrible, so you got to work on that. First thing I'll do is like go to the GM's office and Ryan Pace help me out here at the offensive line, but definitely the Bears.
All right, hardest one. Would you rather be this head coach of the New Orleans Saints in 2025, or would you rather be Gilberto, the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders?
It is a tough one. I do kind of like that the silver and black colors, and obviously the culture of the Raiders, which has they all go back to the 1970s and those good old days there. But I'm trying to think about it, and all you have is Max Crosby. So you know what? I'll go with the Saints here. I like the food in New Orleans. I did live in Las Vegas for a couple of years. I did enjoy Las Vegas, but yeah, again, it feels like what's the plan here? And then also ownership too does matter. Mark Davis, what have you really done for me since you took over for your dad there? Uh, and then I totally forgot that he's not even the real owner there. I know his mom is. Albert Breer mentioned this in the story not too long ago, so there could be maybe something going on down the line there. Tom Brady could maybe be the new boss there.
Yeah, I would. I
Uh,
don't know if I'd want to work for Tom Brady
yeah,
necessarily.
he very demanding guy, so I don't know. And then, but yeah, give me the Saints here.
Wow. You used to live, like you said, you used to live in Vegas.
I
That's
know.
tough, man. The state of the Raiders at this point, that nobody wants this job.
It's been a long time, yeah, for them.
I would say this if I was Aaron Glenn, for example. I mean, that's someone again that makes some sense for me. I'm doing give me a 6 year contract minimum. I'm not coming in there without any sort of non-assurance that I'm going to have some time here. Anyway, let's get to it. I want to start with Sunday Night Football. The Vikings beat the Colts 21-13, and I caught a lot of heat from Colts fans actually earlier in the week, and I didn't even notice it. Sometimes it's like one of those little fires that you set and then you walk away, and then you come back and you realize that a lot of people are mad at you, which is sort of story of my life. But um, I wrote earlier in the week that I mean, yeah, of course you had to bench Anthony Richardson because for a couple of reasons, right? He wasn't playing well. If you're Shane Steichen, you don't want to get fired. You want to be the guy who develops Anthony Richardson, but you need to win games first, and then you need to buy yourself the time to develop Anthony Richardson. And there's 51 other guys in that locker room who got to eat, right? That got to get paid. And Anthony Richardson wasn't getting them the ball, and Joe Flacco posed a little bit more of a better option there. Um, Joe Flacco did not play well against the Vikings. He was 16 of 27 for 179 and an interception. He was sacked 3 times, most of those down the stretch at the end of that game when it was just pressure, pressure, pressure. Um, But does that necessarily mean it's a bad choice to have started him against the Vikings? I'm curious what your take is on that.
No, I don't think so. I think we have the same thinking there with Anthony Richardson, and I've been one of the biggest supporters for Anthony Richardson, even up to that game before the tap out with the helmet thing. It sucks he's gonna be remembered for that for a long time with the tap out. But I was saying you can't give up on a talent like that. And a year with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield are doing well. Give the guy a chance. Our colleague Greg Bishop wrote a great story about this is the greatest athlete on the planet. Why are you gonna give up on that? And then you go into that Texans game and started thinking like, why are you tired? You're tired because you do too much. You make dumb mistakes because you want to be the hero at all times. And I think in a way, Conor is going to help him out to regain respect in the locker room because he does so much. He wants to help out. He wants to be that hero, but sometimes you got to chill out and make some smart plays, throw the football away. Don't run around too much around the pocket. Give your coach a chance to run consecutive running plays so you could, regain your win or just get in better shape. That's easy for me to say. I don't run marathons like you, Connor. Uh, but I was a big supporter. And then when you do the tap out thing, it's a bad look. If you're Shane Steichen, you can't really support the guy. And then you're in the middle of a playoff race. Like, the Texans are reeling right now. They were hurt at wide receiver. They lost to those Jets there who are going to be hanging around for a little longer in their lives there. So you definitely haven't had an opportunity to get that spot. Like you mentioned, guys in the locker room want to eat. They want to win games, and you can't win around for Anthony Richardson to develop. And when that happens where you want out because you're tired, that's you can't sell that to the locker room there. So yeah, it wasn't a good game for Joe Flacco. You're facing a tough defense, and the Vikings who were on 10 days rest. They were pissed off about the Rams game. They were mad about the Lions game. They needed a victory, and Brian Flores' defense came through. So they're still in the race there. It's a lot of mediocre teams in the AFC. So we've seen Joe Flacco get hot in a hurry. We saw it last year with the Browns. We saw it in 2 games earlier this season with the Colts. So I don't think it was a bad choice at all.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I feel bad for Anthony Richardson because this is he was being honest, right? Like, why did you
Yeah.
tap out, right? And there are so many times, right, when you're like, you ask a player like, "Hey, why'd you go to the locker room during the game?" And they don't want to say it's because it's like, "Yeah, I had to go to the bathroom," you know. And so all of a sudden, Anthony Richardson is telling the truth. It seems like just the nicest kid, very genial, all that kind of stuff, but. I feel like it's a one situation that you can't put yourself in where, you know, whatever. The quarterback position is such that it's such this martyrdom thing where you have to take all the blame. You have to, the world is on your shoulders. You have to be the one sacrificing, throwing your body around, all that crazy stuff. So with Anthony Richardson, it's just a matter of, you got to get that back and you got to earn that back and you got to do it organically. And, if I'm Shane Steichen, you got to wait until you know that you're out of contention, or you have to wait until you know that he can earn it back organically. Let's say he kills it in practice one day and lights everybody up and he's running around and he's trucking people. Okay, then put him in, then let him. I mean, not that anybody can come near him in practice, but the spirit of the thing. Let other guys around him see that he's ready to come back in, and then all of a sudden you have a shot at it. I don't know. That's at least my thought on the matter.
Yeah, and obviously, football's a lot of weird things, but you got to do the little things, right? You got to be the one, hand clapping and high fives and fist pumping. You got to be around. You got to show your face. You got to act like you care. And one thing I feel about Anthony Richardson is like he's from a different generation, and we're in this era where there's load management. When the NBA baseball players are getting days off, obviously wide receivers or running backs can get a breather every now and then. So why can't the quarterback have a break here? And it's just sometimes you gotta know the rules. You gotta know. It's kind of like the way things are. Unwritten rules in baseball, so you can't leave as a quarterback, but yeah, you definitely got to do all the small things. You got to be a good backup. You got to, look at that tablet for hours and hours and show that you're actually going to put in the work. And I saw that there was a couple of reports out there that said the Colts weren't happy with him leaving the facility pretty often in the offseason. So all these stories come out that he was not working hard. So you gotta show like you are working hard. Obviously, do it. But the crappy part is you have to, be in everybody's face about it and get that respect back.
And now, nice win for the Vikings, who snap a two-game losing streak. Sam Darnold, 28 of 34 for 290 yards and three touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, seven catches for 137 yards. I enjoyed Chris Collinsworth saying, why isn't anyone playing bump and run coverage on him? Because you can't play bump and run coverage on him. You can't
Yeah.
play Justin Jefferson. There's no way to play this guy. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's getting paid as the best wide receiver in the NFL. One more note on this game, and I'm curious if anybody else caught this out there, was that Chris Collinsworth at the end of the game, Mike Tirico goes, they were showing a picture of JJ McCarthy on the sidelines. And Mike Tirico said, and Chris, you have something on JJ McCarthy. Don't you take it away. And then Chris Collinsworth basically said, and I don't feel like I'm putting words in his mouth here, even if Sam Darnold takes the Vikings to the Super Bowl, JJ McCarthy is going to be the starting quarterback next year. And I was like, excuse me? You're just going to drop that with like 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter? And clearly that came from someone inside the Vikings building. Um, you know, feels like it was a little personal given that I wrote that they should sign Sam Darnold to a 3 year, $40 million a year contract extension a couple years ago. But Chris Collinsworth specifically said they want to live that life. They want to have a rookie quarterback. They don't want to have a lot of money on the books at the quarterback position. That floored me because Sam Darnold is one of the seven or eight best quarterbacks in the NFL this year. And while I understand that if you're Kevin O'Connell, you feel like you can keep doing this and bringing him in and coaching him up, but man, you're gonna let that guy go. He's gonna get a job somewhere.
Yeah, I did catch up with Chris Collinsworth, and he was really feeling himself with sharing a lot of stories yesterday, Connor. He mentioned that story about Zaire Franklin saying that, yeah, you're the reason why I became so good at being a linebacker. I'm like, you're gonna just share that story there, where like you're the reason why Franklin is getting 100 tackles per season. I guess maybe just being nice to you. So maybe he's taking things out of context, but yes, he did not just say that without at least talking to somebody in the Vikings organization. And yeah, so if he wins the Super Bowl, takes on the Super Bowl, that's not going to be enough for Sam Darnold. I was also, a little shocked there. I get you drafted JJ McCarthy, what, number 11 or number 10, I forget, in the first round. So, but he's coming back from a significant knee injury. Maybe give him some time to, heal and then learn the game from the sideline. And
Yeah,
why do we got to rush him? Obviously, maybe give Sam Darnold the Geno Smith contract where you pay him a lot for a year, but you get out of it the year after that. So why not? If Sam Darnold's doing that well, keep it going. I know this experience for Sam Darnold is very up and down, but the Super Bowl, come on, you got to give him another contract for that.
I know. I agree. I mean, who cares? It's like all these teams are like, yeah, we want to win. We want to win on the rookie quarterback formula, the rookie quarterback formula. Great. I mean, that was awesome when what was the last team? Who was the last team that did that? The Seahawks, maybe with Russell Wilson? Let's see.
Yeah,
Um, this is easy, right? List of Super Bowl winners, Super Bowl
been
champions.
Mahomes, Stafford, and Brady for the last, what, 10 years?
Yeah, and Mahomes, by that point, would you have done it with, so the Chiefs won the last two, but Mahomes had
Oh,
the big contract. The Rams with Stafford in 2021, the Buccaneers with Brady in 2020. So the Chiefs in 2019.
yeah,
So Mahomes would have been on his rookie contract in 2019, right?
yeah, that's
That's the
definitely
last
a
one to
rookie
do it.
contract.
But then okay, so then before that, the Patriots and Tom Brady. Before that, the Eagles and I guess technically the Eagles and Wentz, because I think that was before his big contract, I want to
I,
say.
I
Yeah,
can't
because that was
remember.
his second season.
Yeah, he got paid him maybe in that offseason because he was doing so well and then he got hurt.
Right. So I think Wentz was on his rookie
But
contract,
are we
but
going to give it to him and not Nick Foles? But
right.
also an affordable contract.
Yeah, and then Patriots again before that. Broncos with Peyton Manning. Patriots before that again with Brady. Seahawks with Russell Wilson in 2013. So I think, but like this is all relative. Like before that, it was Flacco on a second I remember he was on a big second contract. You had
Yeah.
Eli Manning, on a big second contract. You had Aaron Rodgers, who I believe was on a second contract at that point. So, I mean, you know yes, it's a cool thing to have line up for you, and it does make things easier. But I don't know. I think that's a little bit of a fantasy. If you have a good quarterback, just hold on to him. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
I get maybe Mahomes is people want to get Mahomes and he's kind of ruining it for the other teams. Like we got to get a superstar quarterback and get him. But there's different ways to win a Super Bowl. And I know it took us a while to find the rookie deal there, but it does happen. Draft one or maybe get guys like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff, perfect example. I know he already got paid, but sometimes you find these quarterbacks with a second home or just need a time to develop, and you never know how it works out.
What is Underdog? Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on two or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Think Jalen Hurts will rack up higher than 200 passing yards next week? Justin Jefferson will get lower than 10 catches? Cook up some entries for a shot to win real cash prizes all football season long. They've got all your favorite teams and stars to choose from. Create entries with basketball picks or mix and match across all your favorite sports. Underdog is the best place to play Pick'em. So sign up now and deposit using promo code MMQB to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. I've heard from friends who love to pick their own players, their stat types. They love to text me and say, "Look at how much money I'm winning from Underdog. This is crazy." And they all say the same thing. It's super fun, super simple, and they all enjoy playing the game. So download the app today and use MMQB to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. You must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 years or and older in Colorado for some games, 21 in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text next step to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-800-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE NY. That's 467-369. Next one we got here is Rams and Seahawks. We had some overtime. I hate overtime in the 4 p.m. window. It's absolutely awful
Yeah, it's
because
late.
if you're working, like if you're a person that's working in football, like you're trying to put everything to bed from the 4 o'clock window before you get to Sunday night football. But this one goes into OT, and Matt Stafford throws an absolute dime to win this game. Demarcus Robinson was on fire in this one. Cooper Kupp, 11 catches for 104. Demarcus Robinson, 6 catches for 94 yards. Only one catch for 11 yards from Puka Nacua, but some extenuating circumstances there. Geno Smith, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, the full Geno Coaster experience. What do you make of the Rams at this point, who are now 4-4? They're one game back in the division of the Arizona Cardinals, who, yeah, obviously everybody thought that's the team that would be in first place right now. But I I kind of saw this. This was the long game for them. And I wrote a couple weeks before the trade deadline. I thought if they lost that Vikings game and then they lost this game against the Seahawks, we would probably see Cooper Kupp go. And we could probably even generously, they could entertain Matt Stafford going because at that point, what's the point of having him, But I think they're all in. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually kind of circle back here now and add before the trade deadline. I mean, Les Snead is super aggressive as a general manager, but in a calculated way. But now, you see the runway in front of you. They got kind of a little bit of a soft schedule coming up. I don't know. I think this, why not pound the pavement a little bit and get somebody at the deadline?
Yeah, they feel like last year where they got hot after the bye week. I know the bye week came a little later last year, and they won 7 of the last 8, regular season games there. And I kept pointing to that game after the bye week for this year. When they're facing the struggling Raiders, like you got to win that one because you would have. I think they would have gone like 1-5 or something at that point. And they won that one. They won 3 games in a row. They beat the Vikings. They beat the Seahawks, and they probably should have lost that game in Seattle. You were down Puka Nacua. Even Geno Smith came back at the end there, but they're definitely a dangerous team, and also they benefited from the NFC West being down, the 49ers coming out a little sluggish. The Cardinals are 5-4, and they're leading the NFC West here, so they got some time there to get everything together. And Yeah, why not go all in and maybe get a couple, maybe get a linebacker? I know they're struggling there. They probably have one of the weakest linebacker groups after they traded Ernest Jones to Tennessee, who went to Seattle, who they were playing him yesterday for the little revenge game. But I'm very impressed with the defense too. I know there's no Aaron Donald. You will always rather have Aaron Donald, but that defensive front has come alive. Braden Fisk, Jerry Verse, Byron Young, and then even the secondary has gotten better. The secondary keeps getting torched every week. Jackson Smith and Jigba went off on them, but now they're making interceptions. Now they're making up for that with game-changing plays, game-changing momentum plays. Cam Kinchins, where did he come from? Getting two interceptions and then a pick six for 103 yards. So if you have a defense that making plays like that, and then you have the offense of Matthew Stafford, they're going to be pretty dangerous. And I started thinking like this NFC is pretty loaded. If the 49ers and the Rams find the way in, I know they've been banged up, but you don't want to see teams that have Super Bowl experience. If you're, the Lions or the Vikings or the Commanders, a young team like that. So yeah, I could definitely see the Rams making a run here.
Puka Nacua got thrown out for punching Tyrell Dodson, which is, I mean, it's funny, but it's like I guess you can't do the act of punching. Dodson hit
Yeah.
him way harder,
Yeah, it
and
was it was
then
a counter too.
yeah, I thought so. I mean, I don't know. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a couple minutes because I have some hot ejection takes from Sunday, but
Yeah.
I don't think that merited one. But I understand that above all else, like you can't throw a punch. Like the look of throwing a punch is something that the officiating crew is not going to tolerate. But man, I mean, Demarcus Robinson has been one of those secret Rams stars for a long time. Like coaching staff absolutely loves that guy, and it was good to see him kind of get his pay dirt a little bit, and it just shows how crazy it is that the rest of this team, how deep this offense can be. I mean, they survived a really difficult stretch without most of their best players, and now they're here to let it roll. So we'll see what happens. Next on our list, Gilberto, we got the Lions and the Packers. 24-14 Lions over Green Bay. Detroit moves to 7-1. The Packers fall to 6-3. The Lions are 4-0 on the road this year. This was a rainy game and really came down to me to the end of this first half when you have Brian Branch, your defensive signal caller, who's ejected for a bang bang hit on Bo Melton. And I don't know what you thought about this, but I saw Branch trying to lower his shoulder, and then I saw Bo Melton also turn around at the worst possible time to initiate the contact between the two of these guys. But I love what Dan Campbell said after the game. He went, if we're in the 4 p.m. hour, if it's one of those like games that everybody's watching, officials are going to throw you out every time, but they're not going to do it earlier in the earlier windows. And he's absolutely right because we're not going to spend a lot of time on the Saints and Panthers game, but the Saints and the Panthers game, Xavier Woods cleaned Chris Olave's clock. It was a bad hit. It was his ninth unnecessary roughness penalty of his career. And then in this game, you have, Brian Branch, yes, the Lions secondary is physical, but I don't think he meant to inflict any harm on him. But here you go. You throw your defensive signal caller out of the game, and then the Lions just continue to roll. Touchdown, a pick six after that, a touchdown, a critical fourth and short stop. And yes, Green Bay did get the 8 points at the end of that game, but even then, still down 10 points.
Yeah, and I know they didn't really matter for the Lions at the end, but he's a big time player who makes a lot of plays. This is a defense that doesn't have Aiden Hutchinson, so you lean
Yep.
on guys like that, like Brian Branch. So, but I'm with you. I know the replay looks, it was a tough watch. It's a scary hit, but these guys are going at full speed. That's something that we're overlooking here. Like, it's hard to kind of pull back and not be, as aggressive. And like you mentioned, the player went the other way, and it just, bad timing there, and these bang bang plays happen all the time, and yeah, that's a good point by Dan Campbell. I'm surprised he even mentioned it. Where like you do have the spotlight. People are going to talk about this game, and the Lions are not used to being in this. For me, it was 125 Pacific time or 425 Eastern. They play a lot of 10 a.m. games for me. I remember waking up early and I was seeing the Lions on at 10 in the morning Pacific time. So, yeah, you don't remember those games very often, but these primetime windows you definitely do. So, good on Campbell bringing it up. So put it to the attention to people at the league there to see what they could do about it. Uh, I get it. These ejections are pretty tough, and you want to keep the game safe, but things like that are just very tough. And going back real quick to the Puka Nakua thing, I'm like, you were throwing a punch with somebody wearing a helmet. Can we not throw them out? Like they're
I
wearing a
know.
helmet. Why are we doing? Also, that player's a fool for throwing a punch with somebody wearing a helmet. So maybe we could ease up on those rules too.
Yeah. Would you have played in hindsight? Hindsight is obviously 2020. It's a rainy game. You know the forecast. You've seen Jordan Love kind of limping around. Now he says he was good to go. We did see him, express some discomfort during that game. Would you have played Jordan Love? Jordan Love went 23 of 39 for 273 yards and an interception. Again, I mean that pick six was a backbreaker in this game, probably the defining moment of that game. Great pressure from Aaron Glenn's defense, and all of a sudden you find yourself way down in the score. Would you have thought about playing Malik Willis because you're like, it doesn't really matter. Like we're either going to lose this game with an uncomfortable quarterback, or we might be able to sneak it out with someone like Willis, who's had some weird good games, is probably a better quarterback on the ground. Maybe the Lions aren't expecting it. I don't know. Are you playing Love in this one no matter what?
Yeah, probably because it's such a big time game in the
Yeah.
standings, and every all these games at NFC North matter, especially like you got the Lions and the Vikings, and the Lions just seem to be pulling away now, and also even like I think I want to say if or maybe not, but if you beat the Lions, being the Packers beat the Lions, they probably get a good shot at getting that number one seed too in the NFC, and that's really important. I get it. But I'm starting to get a little worried about Jordan Love, and it's not just about his performances, also being available. He's his second injury now of the season. Uh, and the tough part, I started thinking like, okay, how much can I really take away from what I don't know, 60% Jordan Love against a very good Lions team? Like how much like I really like the Packers. They have a very good defense and a very good offense. It's just Jordan Love when he's high on a heater, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he just tends to make some pretty dumb mistakes, and maybe we should not be surprised for a quarterback making he's doing his second year as a starter. He's still very young, but it's not just performance; it's just he's getting hurt, and then he comes back, and it hurts the team on the field. Like that Vikings game, he came back after a 2 game absence, and they were down 28-0, and they lose that one, and then now they lose to the Lions. Now you're 0-2 in division. This is their third loss. They lost to the Eagles in Brazil. Maybe another game you're kind of saying, well, it was in Brazil. Like, it's a far game. So at what point, when are we going to realize who these Packers are? Like, are we going to just put a bunch of asterisks to all these losses here? Or are they going to be the team that we look on paper and say, yeah, they're very loaded. They could definitely compete with the Lions and the other teams in the NFC. Maybe the Commanders. The Commanders are still pretty young, but it's wild to see them number two in the standings there. But I'm just getting concerned with Jordan Love. And he could definitely get in a heater, and you get in a close game, and it gets to the crunch time, fourth quarter. He's going to force the ball because he has so much confidence in his arm. If you're Matt LaFleur, how do you balance that out? How do you tell the guy ease up on your strong arm and all your
Right.
physical traits here? It's amazing that you have here all these qualities. So, you know, he did it towards the first half of last season. Then he got on that heater at the end of last year. But how did the play end against the 49ers? It was an interception. So I having a hard time trusting Jordan Love, but he's so damn good.
I know you have to. It's not like Anthony Richardson, right? Where it's like the mistakes are not such, and the lack of first downs and all the other, ball movement, all that other stuff. It's not such that it's going to crush your team to let you, to ride with them. You're 6-3. You're going to be all right. You're going to make the playoffs. Moving on, we got the Cardinals 29, the Bears 9. Gilberto, I thought after last week, if you're Matt Eberflus, you said all I got to do is get out of this game without anything notably crazy happening to my defense in a clutch situation following the Hail Mary in Washington the week before. Well, about 11 seconds to go in the first half, he runs the pass pressure that everyone wanted him to run the week before against Jaden Daniels against a possible Hail Mary. So he pressures Kyler Murray, and then they slip a little draw to Emmanuel DiMarcado, and he runs 54 yards for a touchdown. So twice, the stat was wild. Uh, 6 times in the last 30 years, the Bears have given up a 35 plus yard touchdown with the remaining seconds in either the first half or the second half. 6 times in the last 30 years. Two of those 6 times have happened in the last 7 days
Oh,
for for that team. And it got worse because Matt Eberflus played Caleb Williams until the better end of this game. The Cardinals waved the white flag. They had Clayton Tune in at the end of this game. He did not take out Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams gets sacked from behind, starts limping, and everyone's just like, what? And Caleb Williams is fine. They said they would reevaluate him again today. But he is, I mean, we're talking about a lot of coaches now. We've got two coaches that have lost their job midseason. I don't think that the Bears are necessarily there with Matt Eberflus yet, but I mean, he's barking up the wrong tree at this point. I mean, this is not a good stretch for him right now.
Yeah, and it's been so chaotic, and they haven't even played one divisional game yet. Like, good luck trying to play the Lions twice, and the Vikings twice, and the Packers twice. So it could
Hmm.
definitely get worse here from Matt Eberflus. And I was a fool that picked them last week against the Cardinals, and I'm kicking myself because I'm actually one of the few people that had the Cardinals in the playoffs, and I should have kept going with the Cardinals here. But the
You
weird
had the
thing,
Cardinals in the playoffs before the season?
yes, I did. I had
Okay,
them
I
as
like that. It's a good pick.
I also had the Bears. I'm not confident about that one as a playoff team.
I
But
did too.
don't even look at my bracket. There's a bunch of I reached so hard for a lot of teams. But anyways, I got to get one right. So maybe the Cardinals would be that team. But even if you look at the stat sheet or even if you watch the game, like Kyler Murray didn't have a big game. Marvin
Nope.
Harrison Jr. didn't have a big game, and you still won by 20 points. What was it, 29-9 or whatever it was? So what I guess that just shows you how bad of a game it was for the defense for Eberflus. And they were before that Hail Mary, they were a good defense. And then you just had a dumb sequence there at the end. And I thought, okay, they'll regroup here because Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. have been a little inconsistent for me at times here. Let's see what they do with a good defense. And they didn't even need them to do anything because they won so handily there. So, what are things just kind of falling apart there, in that locker room, and people are still annoyed about the Hail Mary and what happened. And then seeing the reports about the way Tyreek Stevenson handled his benching there. And, Eberflus had to do something. Like, I was going to get annoyed if he didn't bench a guy. Like, you can't go bark with the fans there and not have any consequences there. So I get that. But then the way he handled that, like, it's just, I don't know. When you have kind of a disaster with the coaching staff and then you have a lot of pressure because you have a number one pick and then you have a very, attractive roster and you're not doing much, it's a lot of pressure for him right now.
Tyreek Stevenson, so it was basically like a two drive benching because then there were other injuries that necessitated him to have to play more. And there were two notes that I kind of had on him and again, I feel bad because he was sort of the main character of the world for the last week and everyone was making fun of him. And I'm pretty sure he's grateful for the election. That's just going to sort of wash away everything that he did there. But when he was told he was benched, he left. The reports were that he went in the locker room, collected himself, and then came back and had a good practice. But you can't you can't be surprised at that moment, right? Like if I had spent if I go on and if I go on the platform formerly known as Twitter in like 5 minutes and post some wild incendiary comment, and our editor's like, "Hey, you can't work today," I wouldn't be like, "I gotta go collect myself." Like that's ridiculous. Like I would be like, "Yeah, that makes sense." I gotta I gotta clean some stuff up here, and I thought that was there was one way to handle it and there was one way it wasn't. But earlier, when he got into that game, he was defending like a fade in the end zone and he just back turned to the play and the ball just whacked off the back of his jersey. And then he's turning around and he's going nuts and he's, yeah, complete. And I was like, have you learned nothing from it was good defense technically, right? And I guess it's a pass defense in your favor. But let's not celebrate the one that just hits the back of your shoulder pads. Like let's realize where we're at here in terms of the court of public opinion and let's have a quiet game and move on. But apparently that wasn't the route he was taking. Anyway, yeah, I think Matt Eberflus got to clean some stuff up here. He's got to have a good next couple weeks, but that was a great point by you, right? They have their entire divisional slate left to go. And so let's just take a look at this first. New England next week. So you can get your get right game. You can get to 5-4. That's a 1 p.m. game too. You're kind of out of the national spotlight for a little while. But then, my God, Green Bay at home, Minnesota at home, at Detroit, at San Francisco, at Minnesota, at or Detroit at home, Seattle at home, at Green Bay for the rest of the season. Like, if you're not ready to get into the blender, I mean, this team could end up just finishing the season on an absolute cold streak. I mean, the back we thought that the Steelers were going to have the worst of it because they have the entire AFC North at the end of their schedule this year. I would be thanking the stars to be able to play the Browns twice at the end of the season this year. I mean, the Bears, this is awful. I mean, this is a grinder right here.
Yeah, and yeah, a lot of people didn't see this coming from the NFC North being the by far the best division in football. So, and then if you're the Bears, you're probably asking, why couldn't we take a couple of these divisional games early on just to kind of ease our way into it?
Get your feet wet.
Yeah, and even the Lions weren't this good. In September they almost lost to they lost to the Buccaneers, almost lost to the Rams. So, yeah, maybe would have benefited them there, but. Yeah, it could be a tough one here, and maybe they got to see it through with Eberflus because you are still in the midst of a playoff race. You could maybe make the wild card. Uh, but the funny part thing here, Connor, Tyreek Stevenson is actually a very good cornerback, and nobody really knew his name, and now it's like his name for the wrong reason. So yeah, it's been a tough week for the guy.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that you're not gonna cut him. So, here we are. And you got to figure something out. All right, moving on. We got the Eagles 28, Jaguars 23. This is one of my favorite games of the week because it's a Nick Sirianni game. I
Yeah.
know that there are a lot of non-Sirianni people out there. I hear you. You're always in my mentions. I think Nick Sirianni's hilarious. I love the fact that he will just wake up one morning and just be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go for two. I'm gonna go for it deep in my own territory." And then when I'm asked about it by my estimation, the toughest media market in the country about it, he's just gonna be like, "Yeah, well, if I got him, you wouldn't be asking me about it, so who cares?" This is a guy that kind of just doesn't realize how how close he is to the end of his rope, or he does, and he just doesn't care, right? Bringing his kids on stage, shaving his head, doesn't matter to this guy, and it's just the most chaotic 6-2 team in the NFL, and I love every minute of it.
Yeah, and I've been a little supportive of Sirianni because I appreciate the way he's just having fun with it. And what else can you do when there's like a bunch of pressure in, like you mentioned, one of the toughest markets in the country, maybe the toughest when it comes to the NFL. So people are screaming at you, people want you fired, and you're probably thinking like what the hell, man? Like we went 10-1 last year. We went to the Super Bowl the year before that, and it's like you're still mad at me. So at that
Yeah.
point, what can just have fun with it? Like, okay, yeah, people are not gonna like anything that you do. It's a what have you done for me lately market. So go ahead and shave your head there and go bark with your own fans. You're still what is it, 6-2? I forget the record here for the Eagles. They looked ugly yesterday against the Jaguars, but they still won the game there. They beat down the Bengals not too long ago. It hasn't been the most difficult schedule during this winning streak here for them. We'll see what happens with AJ Brown. I think he got hurt yesterday, but uh, they just keep winning games. And I like the hires for Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. They're clicking so far. So you know what? It's okay to be kind of this, pro wrestler persona style and just do what you want. And just annoy people. Sometimes you got to embrace the heel and have fun with it.
Saquon Barkley obviously did the absolute silliest thing that I've ever seen in my life. And we'll get to the Giants probably in the lightning round because no one cares about them. But like, I mean, I am for largely I'm for getting rid of running backs if you're not going to have the infrastructure offensively to make the best use out of them. Saquon Barkley was ridiculous in this game. He was three catches for 40 yards, 27 rushes for 159 yards and a touchdown through the air as well. The coolest backwards jumping juke that I've ever seen, and a fumble
Yeah.
that was whatever bullshit in my opinion. They said he was touched before it happened, which is what caused the fumble. But the defender that they said touched him, like slapped the back of his heel. I mean, this is barely, this is not somebody causing a fumble. And then, it just came out on the ground. Like he was on the ground for, a solid minute before that ball came out. But anyway, officiating's a mess. We all know that.
Yeah.
He is slowly mounting a case for offensive player of the year. And it's pretty stunning that if Philly stays in this, as long as they stay in this, I mean, he's going to be right there. I mean, he's going to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed. I think it was McCourty on the broadcast yesterday, and he's like, "You're never gonna see that play again. What an amazing play!" And he kept bringing it up the whole time for Saquon Barkley's little razzle dazzle play there. And then he's like, "Oh, Giants fan, you shouldn't be watching this game. You're missing out on this great running back here." And he's just like, I'm like, okay, have fun with it. I like it, McCourty. But yeah, he's usually that award goes to a running back because the MVP goes to the quarterback or wide receiver for the offensive player of the year. And yeah, he's playing well, and you know, people make a whole big deal about being an older running back with a lot of wear and tear on the body and maybe some injury history. And look at Derrick Henry and look at Saquon Barkley, probably the two players leading for offensive player of the year, and maybe you could put them in the MVP conversation. But yeah, that's why I am pretty high on the Eagles doing something. It's kind of like the whole Lamar Jackson, playoff failure history. Well, like you've never seen Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry in the playoffs. Well, let's see Jalen Hurts with Saquon Barkley and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Nick Sirianni too in a playoff game. So, again, a lot of people are trying to, and we're gonna do our, I guess, our repicks for the Super Bowl later this
Hmm.
week, and I'm curious to see what people do there, Connor. But the Lions are going to probably be a very trendy pick there. And it's like, are we sure it's going to be the Lions? Like the Eagles have been to a Super Bowl, the Rams have been to one, the 49ers, the Packers could still be a little feisty there. Maybe the Vikings do something because they know the Lions very well. So that's why the NFC is very intriguing. And I know the Commanders are there too with a young quarterback. But I just feel like the Eagles are a little overlooked. I get it. The schedule the last 4 weeks have been a kind of a cupcake schedule there for them, and they almost blew it to the Jaguars. I wish they did because I picked them again. But Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson do what they do there, and they pulled it out there.
If I were the Jaguars, if I'm Shad Khan, I'm in that building today and I say I'm trading Travis Etienne, I'm trading Evan Ingram. I'm trading not because I'm not trading Evan Ingram because he's bad, but
Yeah.
we just have no use. I mean, he's my leading
Hmm.
wide receiver at this point, and Brian Thomas was in this game, but I'm getting rid of all these guys. I mean, three rushes for 25 yards. You're averaging now one was 16 yards on one of those carries, and then so help me do math here, and then 4 yards carry after that. But how is your lead dog back getting three carries? I mean, Tank Bigsby had 8 for 22, less than 3 yards a carry. You can't run this unbalanced of an offense. Trevor Lawrence threw the ball 31 times, two picks, obviously the one at the end that really kind of cost them here and saved Nick Sirianni. But I mean, this team is, they're circling the bowl right now, and I think they have to be serious consideration for dealers at the trade deadline. Cam Robinson obviously is already gone, but we'll see what else happens. Moving on, before we get into the lightning round, we got to talk Dolphins Bills. And one thing that surprised me in this game was how well Buffalo, not how well Buffalo played Miami, but the fact that Miami was able to hang into this until the very end, despite the fact that, like, Tua Tagovailoa was not really pushing the ball downfield. So you had long passes, you had a 15-yarder, a 17-yarder, an 18-yarder, a 28-yarder, and then a 12-yarder. But when you're talking about like how vertical this offense is, like, Buffalo, they had a 63-yard pass, a 14-yard pass, a 15-yard pass, a 21-yard pass, an 11-yard pass. They were able to kind of get those explosives, but I thought that they hung in there well, considering the fact that Sean McDermott has Mike McDaniel's number, but it's too little too late at this point. You're probably not coming away from 2-6 unscathed at this point, especially the fact that Buffalo's got a stranglehold on this division right now.
Yeah, it's weird because they are a good two-win team, which is
They're like
sounds
the
weird.
best two-win team that, yeah, in the NFL. Yeah.
But I also wonder, like, maybe they should be sellers at the deadline because you
It's a
have
good point.
issues with the cap space. They're maybe not as bad as the Saints there, but you got Javon Holland, the safety there, who's going to be a free agent. You let Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt walk for nothing, in free agency. So because you couldn't pay the guys, you're going to do it again, let them walk for nothing. I guess you could do go the franchise tag route, but maybe think about it because you haven't really done much with Mike McDaniel. And to your point here, Connor, like maybe they are starting to finally show some adjustment and evolve from just not being bombs away and not having a vertical game. But I don't know, maybe it's a good time to reset and have a different vision for the roster. Maybe you could do that with a couple of draft picks and be sellers at the deadline. Obviously, you can't, move on from your trio group of Waddle, Hill, and Tua. But main thing about the defense, repair the offensive line, things like that. But yeah, it was good to see A-Chan run the football and play well. It's funny because he's wearing the giant helmet, but which is good for him. Got to be healthy. But he's a smaller guy, so he looks like a. It looks pretty funny when he's out there with the giant helmet. But he's making plays with it, and I keep laughing about it, but I shouldn't. But yeah, they are a tough out. They're a weird two-win team, and But at that point, you got to look in the mirror and say it's not going to be your year. So maybe it's a good time to have this not a rebuild, but a quick retooling for Mike McDaniel and what he wants to do as a coach for the future.
If you are the Bills, so the Bills were massively helped out in this game by Jordan Poyer headhunting and knocking helmets with one of your wide receivers. Jordan Poyer, obviously one of the more important players of the Sean McDermott Bills era, then goes down to Miami this offseason. The helmet to helmet collision basically puts Buffalo into the range of the field goal. There was the Matt Collins catch that helped in that regard too, and a bit of a phantom spot. Which I'll divert for 1 second to say I've never seen this before in my life, where Matt Collins catches this ball before the Tyler Bass game-winning field goal, and he just picks up the ball and runs it like forward and toward the center and just hands it to the official. And he's like, "Oh, here, put it down." And the official just puts it down. And he doesn't like take any time to look at the spot or review where it was. No extra time comes off the clock. He just puts it down. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. It's probably here." Like you're not going to listen to that guy, you know? But if you're the Bills, like, do you send Jordan Poyer a gift basket at this point because he basically helped you knock the Dolphins completely out of contention at this point?
Yeah, and win the division pretty much like that,
Yeah.
but this massive lead there, and then win the AFC East again. So I don't know, Connor, but I know we've seen the movie with the Bills in the playoffs, we've seen the movie with the Ravens in the playoffs, and I know we're all assuming that it's going to be the Chiefs winning this AFC, but the Bills look pretty good. I've been very impressed there, so we'll see if they keep doing it for the rest of the way.
Talk about a team that should add at the trade deadline. Buffalo needs to create some momentum. And I know some of this good vibes, some of this good play was because they gutted the team and they got rid of some of maybe the
Yeah.
veteran toxicity, whatever it is. But I do think you need to show this team that you're committed and maybe add one or two pieces here before the deadline. One more game before we get to the lightning round. We got Dallas and Atlanta, and the only reason that I bring this up, I mean, Atlanta's on a heater too. You talk about a team that maybe in 2 weeks is not even going to be able to see anybody in their division behind the rearview mirror. The injuries to Tampa Bay just happened at the worst possible time. And as we're taping this, they got the Chiefs tonight. Um, so the Cowboys lose 27-21. This was really not a close game, and Dallas has been really good this year at scoring enough in the final minutes of the game to make it look like they didn't get their asses kicked. So it was 27-13 until a minute 28 left, and Jalen Tolbert gets a 4-yard touchdown pass from Cooper Rush, of all people, because Dak Prescott was injured in this game. Jerry Jones afterwards says, "We're going to add at the trade deadline." And I don't I don't know what to say at this point. Like I have no words for this man. And maybe this is all part of his plan. He's like, "Oh, people are talking about me. That's cool." But like they are the worst kind of irrelevant. They're loud irrelevant, which is really like annoying and frustrating to me.
Yeah, when I've been writing a lot about this trade deadline, and I keep saying, Saints, you have to be sellers. Even you, Dolphins, be sellers. Raiders, be sellers. And I'm like, I'm not gonna bother with the Cowboys. They're not gonna be sellers. They know they're not gonna be sellers. They're gonna keep going all in because it's Jerry Jones. He can't have a wasted season because it's bad for business, right? If you're a losing team that we don't want to watch come December and you want to be relevant, they're gonna do that, even though it doesn't help the future. And maybe this type of thinking and philosophy, that's the reason why they haven't won a Super Bowl or got into a Super Bowl since the 1990s here. So, yeah, I'm with you, Connor. I don't get what Jerry Jones is doing. And, he shouldn't be surprised where you didn't extend the contract. And Mike McCarthy, yeah, having a coach there who's trying to inspire would not have an extension and 1 year left on his deal. Good luck with that, Mike McCarthy. And then you lose Dan Quinn. And I'm not trying to blame Zimmer, but that's not going very well. You didn't, prepare the defense in the offseason. You didn't help out the running back position. You go get Zeke Elliott, who got benched yesterday as his healthy scratch. So, and then you extend the drama with the contract with Zeke and CD, and it's like there's just too much drama that I think a lot of us are not surprised, Connor, and maybe to a degree I was a little surprised at how many people, football scribes, did not put the Cowboys into the playoffs for our predictions in August or whatever it was because we saw the writing on the wall. It was just too chaotic there, and leave it to Jerry Jones to keep fighting at the end and not be sellers and be buyers. And good luck in that tough NFC there and see what happens there. But I don't see it. This team yesterday showed me they're probably got a good time to be forked too.
Yeah, Dak Prescott said to Trey Lance on the sideline, "We effing suck," and
Oh
the
yeah.
camera caught him. He also said it was a hamstring injury, so we should clarify. He said he felt something pull.
Mhm.
I mean, at this point, if we're getting two or three Cooper Rush games, God, what's that going to look like? I mean, or do you, if you're Jerry Jones, do you at least play Trey Lance on Thanksgiving? I mean, at this point, I don't know if Dak Prescott's out for any period of time. I don't know, man. But the NFC East is really starting to disappear from Dallas too. And
Mhm.
the Cowboys have only beat up on soft teams this year. And I thought it was a good quality win for the Falcons because, you kind of measure things differently, right? I mean, if the Falcons were in the NFC East, they would have been in third place, but they're in the division that they're in, and so beating that team feels like a little bit probably more of a quality win. It's like hmm, it's like the team from the Sun Belt beating like the eighth place team in the SEC. It's like Louisiana Monroe beating Vanderbilt. I don't know. Vanderbilt's had a good season though. They upset
Yeah.
Alabama, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, they're okay. Falcons are even at home, 6-3. And we'll see what happens with the Buccaneers tonight. All right, let's get to the lightning round and let's catch up on all the action we didn't miss. Gilberto, just give me one thought on each of these games. So Baltimore 41, Broncos 10. Last week, Sean Payton had all the answers, calling the Panthers a bad offense, saying that, oh, we're this, we're that. And then he comes in and gets absolutely throttled by a team that I think could have a legitimate chance of going to the Super Bowl. Derrick Henry, 23 carries for 106 yards and two touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, 16 of 19 in like 16 dimes, 16 of 19 for 280 yards and three touchdowns. Derrick Henry, we wrote a column about it at SI. I look back at his contract, got a copy of it during the game. He's going to hit his contractual incentives by like week 10. He's going to be the NFL's rushing leader among running backs and probably the scoring leader too. He's unbelievable, man. And this Ravens team has really, really turned it around.
Yeah, for me, I will ignore the Ravens because last time I praised them, they go and lose to the Browns, so I won't do that to you anymore. But I will focus on the Broncos, and I'm gonna be very harsh here. I don't want to see them in the playoffs. The Broncos
No.
don't need to be in the playoffs. Yeah, you're a year ahead or whatever you want to call it, or you're in the right direction. You're an average team. You're moving on from the Russell Wilson mess there. Good job, but don't get to the playoffs. We don't want to see that. I'd rather see the Chargers or even the Bengals, even the freaking Jets. I don't know. It's just they just don't seem ready for that moment. And we saw the separation between a very good team and an average team, and they got beat down. I was a fool who thought maybe the Broncos would cover because it was like +9 for Denver, and nope, definitely not. So, yeah. So for me, yeah, they're in a good spot. You're taking steps forward, but I don't want to see you in the playoffs. So ease up a bit and go 8-9 or something.
Panthers 23, Saints 22. Bryce Young took a knee for the first time in his NFL career. The
Yeah.
the other two, I think the other two wins he was a part of were walk off, like field
Oh
goal
yeah.
stuff, which is really funny. So he's never actually gotten to take a knee for a victory, which is really really funny. The other interesting, I'm going to bungle the stat here, but the Saints they outrushed Carolina by 150 or more yards. Or no, they outgained Carolina by 150 or more yards. They outrushed Carolina for 150 or more yards, and they won the turnover battle. Going into this week, teams who did that were 275-0. You can't lose to Carolina. I mean, it was funny. You brought it up earlier in the show. Cam Jordan legitimately apologizing and being like, "Oh God, shit, this is it, man. We lost to the Panthers. Like, this is as low as it goes." And if for so just quickly, I thought Carolina, you have some players that you're starting to develop. This was Bryce Young's best game of his NFL career by far. I thought he was ripping it from a solid base. He looked good. I've kind of always been in Bryce's corner. I think he's going to be a good NFL starter, but we finally saw it here. And the other name too, if you are a fantasy football person and you are dead to rights at the end of the year, Jalen Coker, who's their undrafted free agent out of Holy Cross, two catches for 36 yards, but had a monster week the week before. Uh, I would keep an eye out for him. And Xavier Legette obviously had a good game too. Did the touchdown pass and the ride the pony
Hmm.
celebration. Great vibes there for them. And New Orleans, I mean, we kind of talked about it at the top, but in addition to all that, you had Michael Thomas tweeting that Derek Carr was ass during the game and that it was his fault that he threw basically what Michael Thomas had inferred was kind of like a hospital ball that got Chris Olave hurt and had to put him on the backboard. So it's a tale of two vibes right now. I mean, Carolina's got two wins, but whatever. They're going to get the number one pick, and maybe they can trade it. This is a down quarterback class. Get some, I don't know, get some equity, man. Like build around Bryce Young, give him a chance. And I thought this game showed that, they can do this. They can hang around.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm fully on the let's give Bryce Young another chance, I guess, train, but maybe with more
Fair.
games, there's plenty of games left. Maybe I'll come around. But when he was throwing to his receivers, he was making some plays, and I'm a big fan of Xavier Legette. I got some time to spend with him at the NFLPA Rookie Summit, and we were talking about his horses and being from South Carolina. So to see him do the dollar bill horse touchdown dance, it's always pretty cool to see. Even the announcers are all getting ready for that, and he's a pretty good player. Just throw it up there, Bryce Young. It'll make your life easier. So, yeah, that's a good win for them, and it's good for Dave Canales, who we all call him the QB whisperer, and he was really struggling with development of Bryce Young to go to Andy Dalton. That didn't really work out. So, a big time win there, and I know we've been spending a lot of time on the Saints here, but just blow it up. Like you haven't done anything in the last 4 years. Yeah, maybe you're not the Panthers just yet, but we're starting to debate about it, and that's a bad sign there. You don't want to be in a conversation about who's worse, the Panthers or the Saints. So, yeah, let's see Marshawn Lattimore gone, Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis. They already resigned Alvin Kamara, so this team refused to give up and focus on the future. But yeah, good vibes for the Panthers, and let's see if they keep it going there. But that race for the number one spot for the draft in 2025 is very competitive right now.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. Titans, Patriots. This is a game that probably neither team was really all that interested in winning. I mean, although Brian Callahan got choked up after the game. He was really emotional. Said that he really needed this one. The Titans
Hmm.
moved to 2-6. I don't have a lot of takeaways on this. I mean, Drake May made the phenomenal play at the end of this game, and the kind of par for the course for what we've seen from him. And I feel like he looks promising. And if you're the Patriots, you kind of you still hang your hat on the fact that I feel like you made the right decision there.
Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed because for that game, or not game winning throw, game time throw from Drake May, I kept just screaming at the TV, just throw it, Drake, just throw it, because he's gonna take a bad sack there, not even gonna give a chance to lob it up. We just saw the Hail Mary last year, just throw it, Drake, and he did, and they got the touchdown. So, from the Patriots standpoint, it was actually the best case scenario. You saw your rookie make a play, get that touchdown and feel good about the future, but you also lost, so that's good for when it comes to the number one pick there. Uh, but yeah, maybe a weird stat, Connor. But I think there was 8 teams that went into the week 9 with 2 wins. Only the Jets won, so 1-7 for the 2-win teams going into week 9. So a lot of 2-win teams did not do well this weekend.
Chargers 27, Browns 10. We have reached the end of the Jameis Winston segment where he's an interesting player. The Joe Flacco deal is not going to happen, right? Like this is not going to be an end
Hmm.
of season swoon. Nick Chubb averaged 2.6 yards per carry. Um, Jameis Winston, one touchdown, three interceptions. And the Chargers they look surgical at this point. Justin Herbert, 18 to 27, 282 yards, two touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins, another big game, two touchdowns, 85 rushing yards. Quentin Johnston, who you love to see having a couple of these big games after the way that his career started in rough season under Brandon Staley's final year there. So, I mean, all arrows are pointing up on the Chargers. I will say this, Cedric Tillman is a beast. The one Browns player that's worth kind of maybe hanging on to at this point. Everybody else can go. Maybe David Njoku go at the trade deadline. All these other guys. You should let Nick Chubb go too if he doesn't want to finish his career as a Brown. Let him go somewhere else and
Yeah.
do something. But I don't know. I mean, what was your takeaway from this one?
Yeah, because I used to cover the Chargers as a beat reporter.
That's right.
I've been very hesitant to jump on this Jim Harbaugh experience because I've seen this franchise mess it up so many times, and I get Jim Harbaugh is different. So I've been very slow to give him good praise. But then yesterday, I'm like, you know what? I like what Jim Harbaugh is doing. I like this team. I get the quality opponent was not good, but it's not. There's nothing fluky about Jesse Minter's defense. They're leading the league in points allowed. I think 12.6 points per game. That's already 8 games of a sample size. They even shut down teams like the Cardinals and the Chiefs. I know the Chiefs' offense is not that good this season, but that's a good defense. And then now with the defense doing well, it bought time for these young receivers to step up and make plays and get chemistry with Justin Herbert. Now you're seeing that on the field with Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey. They're running the football well with J.K. Dobbins. So maybe the last thing for this team, for Jim Harbaugh, he has to repair that interior offensive line, and then you're pretty much rolling there. So it's getting to the point, Connor, where I think maybe avoid the Chargers in the wild card if you're one of these like teams like the
Yes,
Texans or the Ravens, because that's a very good defense with a very good quarterback and an experienced head coach. I know he hasn't been with the 49ers in a very long time, but he just won a natty last year. So yeah, maybe avoid the Chargers.
I agree. I think that's a good thought. Avoid Jim Harbaugh, right? In
Yeah.
in the winter months in general. I think
Yeah.
that's a good piece of advice. And last but not least, Bengals 41, Raiders 24. Um, I mean, at this point, do we feel like, I mean, Luke Getsy, the Raiders offensive coordinator, was fired after this game. I mean, Antonio Pierce is just lighting this thing on fire. He's benched his starting quarterback 3 times. He's fired his offensive coordinator. Is there any moment where everybody's just going to turn around and be like, this might actually be your fault, dude?
Yeah, it could happen very soon, and now he's firing people. That's definitely a big sign there. And are we surprised about the whole Luke Getsy experience? He wasn't even their top option. They wanted Cliff Kingsbury, and maybe the owner was too cheap to give that third year there. But that's the best thing that could happen to Cliff, because he might be a head coach candidate now for what he's doing with Jaden Daniels. So yeah, it's not good for Antonio Pierce. And man, from week one against the Chargers, where he was just so conservative and punting every chance he could, he's still doing it. You're not even going down swinging. So yeah, these Raiders could probably be with a top 3 pick at the end of the year.
What Gilberto, now it's the part of the show where you have to say out loud who you voted for. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody be cool. Have a good election Tuesday, a good
Mhm.
trade deadline Tuesday. I love that the NFL is just coming for the election day too. They're like, we're gonna take that too. Who
Yeah,
cares?
let's not talk
Everybody's get
about it.
yeah, don't vote. Stay home and see
Yeah.
if the Cowboys deal CeeDee Lamb after they say no, I'm just kidding. Matt and Gilberto will be back with the Thursday show, which I know that all of you guys love, have been getting rave reviews for that, and they will be recapping the trade deadline, previewing everything that's going to come for the weekend ahead. Gilberto, thanks for meeting. Thanks for waking up with me because it's
Yeah.
early over there, man. You don't even have
It
your
it
coffee yet.
is. Yeah, I'm halfway with my cup here. I thought it'd be a little rude if I'm slurping here a little too loud.
No
But
way.
yeah, I'm not Albert Breer, but I try to do my best here, right?
No, we love it. And I always bring my coffee because Albert's verbose. And so sometimes I like to just sit and have a few sips of my Nespresso while Albert's talking.
I
So
wasn't sure if I'm like, am I talking too much? I don't know what's going on with the chemistry with Albert and Connor. I do listen
everybody
though.
loves
I
it.
do have an idea. I know sometimes you go, a little off there with your takeaways. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna sit here and enjoy what Connor has to say.
That's it. I think everybody enjoyed it. Thank you, Gilberto. And we will talk to you guys. Well, Albert and I will see you guys next week. Gilberto will be here on Thursday with Matt. And as always, like, subscribe, leave a rating and review. It does help. Tell us what you think, and come back next week.